Hey everyone, welcome back. We've got another turn for you here in the tournament finals. This one is probably going to be a bit of a quick one. We had
Yeah, so we are back to the live turn, which is nice. So no cheating.
yep. Whoop.
But yeah, as you can see from the reports here, it doesn't look like there's a ton of excitement.
But that is because all the excitement happened last turn. So if you didn't watch last episode, go back and watch it. We had huge battles between Gath and Marignon. I mean, epic battles, right? Like 500 units on each side kind of battles.
And a major breakout fight from Agartha finally getting a win over Pythium.
Yeah. And we also, as we get a message from TNG this turn, starting the nap countdown with Pythium. So time is up on the TNG clock against Agartha. So gonna be
the Pythium against Agartha.
Pythium against Agartha.
Yeah.
So gonna be interesting to see how this all plays out. And
it looks like all the battles on the Pangaea Vanheim side are Pangaea attacking into Vanheim.
Right. Vanheim has not found much success with their raiding. We're gonna do this from the map over here because this is gonna be a quick turn, guys and gals.
Okay, so just a scout checking out what Vanheim has in their larger group. Another scout ping kicking the Vanheim remnants off of their fort.
I was thinking maybe this is Dryad action too. There's a whole hidden assassin layer to this Pangaea Vanheim war, I'm sure, as well.
Oh, that's true, yeah. Because they presumably do have Dryads in that fort because they were using Dryads for their stealthy leadership.
What?
Oh, and that's actually interesting.
Pangaea is patrolling with everything. They had a little feeling.
They seem to have thought that Vanheim was going to be moving into here.
And this is really important because this is going to advertise what Pangaea is doing.
Let's check the gems. Yeah, I want to see if they have Fog Warriors up yet. So they do have a Communion. Can you check to see how many slaves are in that? Or I guess we should wait one more turn.
Yeah, I'll do that.
But I don't see a ton of gems.
First gems. We have Nature 2. What's that for?
Serpent's Blessing.
Okay.
Or Relief.
Right.
All right, Anti-Magic. That could be Storm. That could be Mass Flight. No, not Mass Flight. That could be Mist or Arrowfend.
Right. That's
Arrowfend is actually...
That's probably Arrowfend.
Yeah, at least one of those astral things is going to be anti-magic, I would guess. But it could also be just Power of the Spheres for
this could be Relief
on the slaves.
Relief is only one gem, but you have to be Nature 5 to cast it. It's kind of a tricky spell.
Yeah, typically you put extra gems on Relief just because of the path requirement, and then that way you only have to boost it up to Nature 4.
But in a big Communion, you don't have to sometimes, so...
Yeah.
What are we not? Okay, well, let's see. Magic boost 3, 8 slaves.
Yeah, so he would need 2 gems.
Right. Well, that is a spooky stack. The other thing that's interesting, we'll just take a moment here to appreciate, he's got these Grove Guard at the front.
So I think that's for anti-Wailing Winds, because those guys are Berserkers.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what else it could be is...
Yeah, I was thinking he might do the Bodyguard thing again, though.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we couldn't really tell, but I don't think that he was, just based on how lined up the units were. It looked like those were line formations.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Given how widespread that line of the Dryads are, those are definitely not bodyguards.
But we see weird things. Yeah, that's true. That's true. It's weird things. The crossbows getting pushed out to the front, though.
Yeah, I think that's just a matter of positioning.
Yeah.
It's just stacked lines because he's definitely using a forward deployed army.
But this is very weird to me that he was doing so many mages, but without that many gems. I would have thought because Pangaea can definitely cast more than this. Like, we didn't see a Howlcaster. We didn't see Swarm Casters. We didn't see a bunch of things that they can do.
So we know that he was going Ench 7 for Arrowfend.
Right.
That is also Mass Flight. Which
I don't think we didn't see the gems for, right? Mass Flight, you have to be 2 gems.
Mass Flight is 2 gems, yeah.
Okay. There might have been 2 air gems on one mage, maybe. Though I know 2 different mages had air gems. I don't remember one having 2 though. But
yeah, I think that they were both on 1 gem.
Yeah.
So that might just be redundancy for Arrowfend or something along those lines.
Yeah.
But yeah, so with Mass Flight, you can do a lot of stuff of just like blobbing someone, especially if they're not set up with a protected backline. But if Vanheim's doing their point buff thing where they have the mages surrounded by troops anyways, then it's going to be a lot less effective.
Yeah, especially these like slow mass flights where you're having to do communion first and then jump in, because that's going to give Vanheim even more time to get their point buffs off. Because you have to wait for the
typically,
communion, then for mass flight to cast, and then you have to wait for the troops to jump, and then you wait for the troops to land. By the time you're looking at it, it's already like round 4.
yeah, I think mass flight is still very valuable if you're doing stuff like a bunch of elementals with mass protection on them, for example.
Yeah.
Just because then, it takes a little while before everything starts flying, but you do get your elites into the back line as soon as they're like basically ready to fight. And that coincides with your front line kind of already being engaged. So that means that like your current frontline battle kind of resumes as it had already been started, but then you add on like that you now surround the enemy as well.
Yeah.
So it kind of flows pretty well with that. But we didn't see that kind of setup on Pangaea, both because, obviously there wasn't the mass gem stuff there, but also he just didn't have like a blob of melee troops. Like that was mostly crossbows.
Yeah.
The Grove Guard are kind of cute. With the trampling, they can actually disrupt enemy formations, which is actually pretty valuable against a bunch of size 1 dudes. So you can kind of isolate some of them so that they're no longer all clumped up 6 to a square. And that makes your melee fighters a lot more effective just because there's fewer targets to distribute the damage and repel checks. But the Grove Guard themselves are not super effective offensively against size 1 units because the trample damage that they're dealing is actually fairly low.
Yeah. Importantly, too, winter is now over. We're in early spring. And that means in not too terribly long, we'll be having summer. So we may see Pangaea timing an offensive for that. The other thing that, of course, is relevant in the temperature battles is Dominion. And I think this is Vanheim Dominion. Yeah.
Yeah, anytime that you see Cold 3 and Luck 3, then that's... Actually, I guess Pangaea also has Luck. So it's a battle of 2 Luck 3 nations.
Right. So this is like
which actually feels pretty
scales. Good. We've got 2... Oh, so this is important, though. There's a temple here and a throne, and then a fort in a temple, and then a fort in a temple, and a fort in a temple. Whereas on Vanheim's side, we have this with the underwater lab, but no temple, and then a fort here and a temple. But it's a... Pangaea, I think, is doing a pretty good job on dom pressure. And the other thing Pangaea can do, which they may not, but if you're waiting for enemy troops to move into a province, you can take your dryads and you can have them stealth preach. And, if people show up, you can assassinate them if you want to. But and like in a temperature war situation, that can be pretty important.
Yeah, I don't know if it's going to be as impactful as just like the spells. So if they cast Woven Winter, then that's going to make I think a bigger difference. But Woven Winter, because it triggers in the event phase, is actually something that you need to cast the turn before. So we would actually see it before the battle takes place if they were preparing it on one of these provinces.
The problem Pangaea has, though, is Woven Winter is really easy to cast, but the corresponding spell to get heat is pretty difficult. It's Breath of the Desert, and you have to have this weird fire-air cross path, which is pretty rare. And Pangaea's probably asking themselves, like, okay, I've managed to defend myself against Vanheim.
But they did cast Woven Winter on the throne on 124.
Okay.
If you check the event.
Yeah.
It's the temperatures have dropped dramatically event. Yeah.
I was seeing if they also did it here, where these guys were patrolling,
nope.
But no, just here in this province. So maybe they're going to hit it next turn with the big stack.
Now they can see the temperature skills this turn, so they know that it's going to be either heat 1 or neutral, right? Because you're going to have the natural temperature shift before, but the Woven Winter shift after. So they would need to cast it again.
Yeah.
If they were banking on fighting in the cold.
Yeah, it's not super clear to me. I think both these players need to be thinking, how do we bring this war to a speedy conclusion? Because every turn that they spent here gridlocked like this. Like, I don't know what Pan's strategy for invading into the cold is.
Oh, Vanheim also put a Woven Winter on 102. 102 is Vanheim's province, yeah.
Ooh, okay.
And they do have their Dominion there, so that was just, I think, to reinforce it.
Huh. Oh, no, he's casting it. Look, a scorching desert wind swept over the land.
Oh, so the Woven Winter... Well, no, the Woven Winter is also cast there. That's right above it.
Right.
So they both cast it.
They're fighting over temperature in this province. So that's Pangaea's plan. Pangaea's plan is, okay, we're going to pave the way with... They've got to a Scorching Windscaster.
That's expensive. I wonder who they have, because they did get that one fire event mage, but they would have had to empower him in air if that's what they're using. And I don't know what else they could get that has that cross path. I mean, I guess like the silver mages and fire adepts can both get it, but those are Vanheim mages. I don't know why.
We should. So Arco sent me a note. I'm going to pause it real quick and I'm going to pull up his note. All right. So we went and looked up the message from Arco. I'll get to that in a second. But first, you found the adept of the Golden Order here, who is likely casting this, right?
He basically has to be. Like that cross path is rare enough that that's basically the only mage that Pangaea has that even could get it without empowerment.
Right. So it seems like that is part of the Pangaean plan. And I guess he's going to try to waltz in here and hit this province with his army, because he needs. These players are sitting here grinding into each other. They need a plan to close the war out on both sides. The other thing that's kind of interesting that we should look at is Arco was going through and looking at discount sites, and we're going to take a little detour and look at those. Gath has one near the Arco border, he was saying.
Yeah, we'd already seen that TNG has a conjuration discount site.
Wait, where?
But
does he have two borders with Arco?
No, he just has one near that.
Oh, here we go. Statue of the Sitting God.
And that's actually a very common site.
Yeah.
Like, as far as discount sites go, you're more likely to see that than most others. So the reason that enchantment discount sites are kind of higher value than conjuration is just that there's more different globals that they affect, and it also affects wish. So in the super late
wish
game,
is alteration.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's just the Gem globals and
Nexus.
Nexus, that was it. Yeah. I got Nexus and Wish mixed up.
Yeah.
So as you get like later on into the game and you start fighting for like global slots, being able to put it up more cheaply is actually very valuable.
Yeah. And then there's one other player where Arco found a discount site, and that was...
But it's the Cedar Pillars in 57.
Is it this one?
You're looking right at it. It's the green and black one, yeah.
Right. So the Cedar Pillars here, and this will be spoils that'll go to TNG, and a 30% discount site is a good bit better than a 20%. And this might just be the that TNG needs to be more relevant in the late game.
Yeah, it's also very good for Pale Riders, because that's a spell that's actually worth spamming on a number of nations with death excess. Yeah, it's a level 5.
Also, it's really nice for Twiceborn, which is something TNG's probably going to want to be doing a lot of too. So
yeah, it makes it a little cheaper, 3 gems per cast.
Yeah, which, I mean, yeah, that's pretty significant. So
yeah, those are both things that Vanheim would love, because they like actually do get a lot of value out of supplementing their units with permanent undead summons, especially once they start going into turbo communions. Not to the extent that Utgard does, but it's still something that they value quite a bit once they start switching off of doing that point buff centric strategy. And they also get even more, and they also are even more incentivized to spam Twiceborn.
Yeah, the one time I played Vanheim, I did get the Cedar Pillars. I was pretty stoked. But yeah, I mean, from the lookings of this, it looks like this is going to be TNG's rather soon.
And it also makes sense that this is where Pythium is spamming their Long Dead, because they're doing so at a discount.
Yeah, we see Long Dead Horsemen too, so they're doing Pale Riders. So very cool. Yeah. Cool.
And it makes sense. Like, that's an efficient spell even without the discount.
Right. Since we're in the neighborhood, let's come look at this Pythium-Agartha conflict. So, first of all, Pythium, after losing this fight on top of this fort, not deterred, sends a raiding force right back in.
And I think that's what you should do, right? Yeah. Like, especially when you've got such a low commitment stack that you can do it with, you've got the troops right there, you should just get right back on it.
Yeah, if he's going to finish this war with Agartha, which I think he kind of has to, I don't think Agartha is going to be drawn to any terms that would be reasonable. Especially with the nap now ending with TNG, which he hasn't gotten until the turn, where he's already issued these orders. So, but yeah, you want to keep the pressure on. Even though you lost a big army, it doesn't mean you want to turn around with your tail between your legs.
And Agartha did ride out with their god again.
Is that here? Okay.
Yeah. But their god is also not super impressive in terms of like, being a super combatant or whatever.
Yeah.
So
I like that he's put
he
the
is
Ring of the
thugging it,
Warrior on
though.
it, though. It
Right?
matters a lot with life drain, yeah. Wink.
Yeah, but that guy is not exactly a super combatant.
I think he will be in Agartha's cap. I think he actually is a super combatant.
Well, if he wins, he's a super combatant. If he loses, he was merely a thug.
That's a good way to say it. I don't know. This is not where you want your wizard.
That's his prophet wizard,
Oh
too.
my goodness. Yeah. And he probably won't be able to survive water elementals easily.
Yeah, especially with the damage penalty that you get for hitting a lifeless unit with life drain.
Right. So yeah, like he would have probably lost against this, but the stuff that was on Agartha's cap before, he probably would be able to take it. I mean, let's just look at the buffs on this guy real quick.
Actually, I don't know if their life drain attack is reduced against inanimates.
Yeah, I don't know how that mechanic works at all.
I think it must be.
Yeah. So this guy's 20 protection. He's got... Oh, he hasn't done... Why wouldn't he do personal regen? Oh, there he does it. Liquid body... What did he cast? Earth Power, Iron Skin, Liquid Body, Personal Regen, Moss Body. Yeah.
Yeah, so this version of life drain, the one that this pretender has, is always 20, and it's +5 attack, but it's not affected by strength. So you can't actually buff it to go over 20.
Oh.
It's a weird version.
Weird. That's super weird. So, because I was actually just thinking he shouldn't have cast the Liquid Body. He should have done Temper Flesh, because you don't want the strength malice on the life drain, but it wouldn't even matter. So.
Yeah, it doesn't affect that at all. But yeah, and it also has +5 bonus attack. It's also listed as a ranged attack, just with no range.
Huh.
Like it doesn't show that there,
Yeah.
but if you look at it in the inspector,
Yeah.
it's called a natural ranged weapon, which means it's a ranged weapon that you can use in melee.
Okay.
But it's obviously like an
But
actual
some of the
melee
natural
attacking
ranged
practice.
weapons aren't affected by like Aerofend and stuff. Like a Mind Blast isn't. So.
Yeah, no, this one's not affected by Aerofend either,
Yeah.
but it's also... Oh, Life Drain has the same thing. Okay, so that's probably just part of the Life Drain package.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, I mean, if he gets Body Ethereal cast on him, he could tank water elementals or a few of them for a while. Not like 5 or 6, but like maybe 2.
I mean, he'd take 10 damage on average per water elemental per turn. So
No, because he's got these and he's got Moss Body.
Yeah, that's what I said. That's like baseline protection with just ethereal. So yeah, with the layers of mitigation that he has with Moss Body and the resistance, I think you're right.
Yeah. So,
and he's also got regen. Yeah. So he can tank pretty well. What I'd be more worried about is the spoke counters, but that's a little bit harder to field for Pythium because he has very poor mobility. So even if he does go go build the thing to deal with this god, it would take him like 2 to 3 turns to get there.
Yeah, for sure. And now it's like, if you're Pythium, what do you do? And did I miss? Oh yeah. So this was I showed this, but this actually is a decent number of Agarthans dead too. I mean, I kind of just sped through this battle, but this is like the rest of the Agarthan army of human troops.
Yeah, they still have their Umbrals and they still have their god.
Yeah,
but yeah.
So I think the moves.
Wait, did Agartha order that mage to retreat? The guy who had then he's dead.
Yeah,
there's no retreat places.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Interesting. I don't think Agartha was expecting that. Otherwise, he definitely wouldn't have ordered that guy to retreat.
All right. Well,
if he hadn't ordered him to retreat, he would have been fine too.
Yeah. So it's kind of interesting. I think the god is basically the most predictable move. It's just come onto the capital. And the thing is that there's enough Umbrals inside that if the Umbrals break out and patrol with mage support, they'll probably kill this stack. So Agartha has, in my opinion, I think they can just take both of these forts back. And if Pythium tries to put troops on them, I think they die.
So the one thing that Pythium might be able to do against that god is just hold it with Skeletal Spam.
Mm,
and then win via turn timer.
that's a good point. Because
The trick there is
especially
basically making sure that you don't cut off its ability to leave the battlefield, because you're not killing it with
right.
that. You're literally just timering it out.
Yeah, and if you on the province and they're attacking into you, then they turn timer first, which is important.
Yeah, this wouldn't work offensively, but this could work for maintaining that siege if he can get all of his troops to bodyguard.
That's true. The problem is if you don't kill it, it just goes inside the Agarthan fort, and then
Yeah, and then you have time to go bring up whatever you're going to be killing it with.
yeah, I agree. That's probably the best plan. That's
Because it's killing one skeleton per turn,
2.
or 2 with quickness, at most.
Yeah, it's not hard to turn timer that guy. And there's not many ways to make it. Wait, did it have another attack too? Oh, Mind Blast, yes. Yeah, it's hard to add more attack. Oh, this is. I wonder if the life drain is built into the chassis. Like, I wonder if you could give it weapons and it would keep it.
I'm not sure. I actually haven't tried.
Because it depends on the Mind Blast. Some of them are built into the chassis. I'm guessing this one is. That even if you gave it weapons.
You mean the life drain?
Yeah.
That would make sense given the whole strength doesn't work thing.
Right. So if that's the case, it would be really cool to see. I hope Agartha gets the resources to put some, like a sword and shield on this. That would be awesome.
And it's a cute little axolotl.
Yeah, it really is. You can't, gosh, you just can't help but root for the underdogs in these games. I love that Agartha is just. It's actually wait. Oh no. It's like Midgard had a virus, and the virus was just bleed whoever's attacking you dry, and he gave that virus to Agartha, and Agartha is about to give it to Pythium.
Or so we can hope.
Right. Because what looked like a very one-sided war with Pythium has just turned on its head, and it is very costly now. And while we don't have access to what the next turn is, I can't imagine the next turn is going to be that great for Pythium.
I think that they have a way out with regards to fighting that god. The trick is if they have enough death mages to do both that and to kill all the umbrals.
Right. But we don't. Does Agartha have Conjuration 5? What are umbrals? Are they 4 or 5?
Well, we know that Agartha has Conjuration 5 because they did full-size fire elementals.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's what I was saying. If maybe, or that's what I was not saying, thinking, was if this god comes out here with 2 fire elementals to get Iron Warriors cast on them, which we know Agartha also has, that would handle any Skelly spam problems if those guys kind of survive. Even just 1 fire elemental with Iron Warriors could be a... But we have no idea what they're going to do.
Yeah, no, that's a good thought, actually. That would actually help. And because the god itself has magic leadership, those mages don't need to stick around.
Yeah, kind of what we're seeing from Agartha is like a kind of cool silver lining way to play them. Like, it's like they went full scales. And the interesting thing is that their full scale stuff isn't really helping them. Like, all their full scale stuff is just getting murdered. But they have all these little tricks they can do with their gems and their summons that is making them just really hard to put out of the game. It's pretty interesting to me.
Yeah, and that's true, I think, of most like heavy elemental nations in general, though, is that like if you can empty out your gem treasury and just get a bunch of combat power for this one critical battle, that's actually a pretty big portion of like any nation's power budget.
Yeah. For sure. We have a Utgard over here swiping this militia province. I must say you called that out.
Yeah, I think that was the pretty obvious move given how passive Utgard has been playing. But okay, they're all on Vanheim's border now. So we know where they're going now.
So they moved, I think they were here, and I think they moved from here to here, and then from here to here. And this is everybody. Like, he cleared out all the Pegasi warriors. You can see there's a huge pile of Seth Kona. This is...
Sorceresses, yeah. He still has his Scratty in 3 doing blood hunting there.
This is what I think is going to tell the okay. It's at least 2/3 of his mage cores rolled out with this army. Look at
that. If you look at province number 3, though, and province... Okay, so he had been blood hunting in province 14, and then he moved off of it to province 3, and he's doing hunting there now. Oh, and he's hunting an 18.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, some unrest. Do we have Scotty here? Not sure. But yeah.
I think we would see. Oh no, actually, Pegasus Riders are also size 4.
Okay.
So we wouldn't actually see them from.
There's a lumber construct here too.
Yeah, I think that the lumber construct is geared.
Yeah, I mean that might be hiding him, but maybe not. Yeah.
Hiding the Scratty,
yeah,
you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, that would make sense. Well, the other thing is that if you're using them just as communion slaves, then it doesn't super matter.
Right. Yeah, I was just wondering if we're going to see turbo communions. I really would like to. And I mean, obviously, Squeako knows how to do turbo communions. So.
Yeah, and they're one of the big things that Utgard's actually good at.
Right.
Like they're kind of like a major portion of that nation's strength.
The real thing is Utgard going to be like, bada bing, bada boom, and come over and take this, right? And raid some of this stuff back. Or is he going to be like, gadung, gadung, right? Like, and go for the death blow on Vanheim?
I don't think he should. I mean, I don't know what he's going to do, but I don't think that he should. I don't think that that's likely to succeed.
Yeah.
Whereas I think that he can reasonably take that throne.
Oh, this is the other X factor in all this. This actually is the X factor. Utgard attacks him, but Vanheim has the Idol of Sorcery that has air paths, which means that idol.
He can do a Wailing Winds drop. Yeah,
he can do Wailing Winds. He can also do Wrathful Skies, and Wrathful Skies is going to fuck up Turbo Communion. Like it's going to kill all his Seth Kona. I mean, the Garms will kill it.
He does have shock resistance in his bless, though.
Oh, Utgard does?
He's not going to protect the mages.
Utgard was just regen.
Just regen and shock resistance.
Oh, okay. Okay, I forgot the shock resistance part.
Yeah, because he's got the Idol of Beast.
Okay. Well, if that's the case, then I wouldn't do it. Like, I wouldn't deploy it against Utgard, because the Garms would 100% kill it then. So.
With Wailing Winds, you could... and Oh, I see. Yeah. So what I think you would need to do is actually deploy it in cohort with troops.
Yeah. That's hard to do, though, since it has to magic phase around. But
yeah, Vanheim can do it, though, because they've got a bunch of stealth guys. So basically, you sneak whatever troops you actually want in the fight into a province. And then that way you also have complete control over where the battle takes place.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, so maybe there's some ways to use it. A stack of Garm herdings with shock resistance is not the ideal thing to use that god against, though. But it is... Wrathful Skies is really good against the Turbo Communion. It'll just blow up all the Seth Kona. So
yeah, you would basically be limited to bringing sacred units on the Vanheim side. But because he does have that shock resistance in his bless, he can use just Vedi Gaijas, like no hags. So Vedi Gaijas, Jotun Gaijas, and then make that the army that kills the Utgard stack.
Yeah, that's a great point. If you have the whole army there, then you're neutralizing the Skelly spam, which is like the strength of the Utgard army, and you're killing all of his mages, and your troops would, this many Rimbeti would be horrific to watch. And these Rimbeti, we were saying one of the weaknesses of them is that they have pretty low damage. That's not going to matter exactly against low protection Garms. So.
Oh, and Vanheim also bid away the Mason guy from, or not Pythium, Pangaea.
That's really nice. So they're going to be upgrading this cap fort.
The Silver Throne.
Oh.
That's where he's at.
Okay. Cool.
So they value getting more of those Silver Adepts, which makes sense.
But unfortunately, he might be upgrading this throne for Utgard. So
yeah, if you can't defend it in time.
Yeah.
But I mean, there are definitely ways that Utgard can defend this.
Yeah, Vanheim. Yeah.
Or sorry, Vanheim can defend this.
Yep. Okay, I think we've talked this. Gath and Marignon. So Gath chose to pull back.
Yeah, I think that, like, regardless of whether they are going to renew their offensive or not, you do want to pull back at least once. Like, you want to wait one more turn in order to basically arrange your army as you actually want it to be. If you're doing, a Foul Vapors type thing, then you still need to, like, sort it out so that you get all of your non-sacred troops out of the way, or at least, the ones that you don't want to toss away, or can't buff with poison resistance.
Yeah.
He did finish cleaning up the lake.
Cleaning up the lake. That's nice. Has to be.
I also like that he left 20 PD and the crossbows in 253.
Yeah.
I think that's like a good modest commitment where, like, It's not going to fight the army, but given that Marignon doesn't have like very effective thugs because they lost the only thug unit that they have, they're not going to be able to retake this without just, deploying a bunch of troops at it. And that's something that province defense and crossbows are actually quite good at.
Right. Yeah, that's a great point. So I guess what we see next turn is Gath consolidating his armies into this fort. And
well, sort of, right? Like it's a matter of what he wants to bring where. So like if he has everything ready for a Foul Vapors play in that southern fort, he could go right back onto Province 230 again. Or sorry, 227 again.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
It just depends on where Gath's stuff is and what his plan is basically to actually kill that last Marigny stack. Since he killed so many mages, he should be pretty confident moving into that fight. But he also just needs enough of his own stuff in order to make sure that he's not going to die just to crossbow spam.
Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah, and I mean, Marignon's probably out of gems too. That's probably the other thing here. So while they've been getting their gem reserves probably depleted and depleted, I think they're probably about fresh out now. So.
Yeah, but even if they had gems, they wouldn't have enough mages to use them anymore. The only mages they have left are those Bloodfire mages.
Yeah, that's true.
So, if he spent his air gem treasury, then at least he spent it well because he doesn't have that many air mages left.
Well, he's got 20 Godic Adepts here. That could be significant. They can't sail to get here, and they can't go through the cave, but...
Yeah, but those guys are fire blood, is what I was saying. So, he was burning a bunch of air and water gems. Well, he lost most of his air and water mages anyways.
Yeah, okay.
So, the gems that are valuable for him now are just his fire gems, basically, and of course the slaves.
Yeah. True. I mean, those things do matter, though. And I mean, Godic Masters do they get air cross spells?
They get earth.
Is it just earth?
No, they get, it's earth, blood, astral. I think they had one more.
Yeah, earth, blood, astral, fire. So.
Oh, fire. Fire, that was the last one.
Okay. All right. Very cool. Hope to see the final showdown between them.
They might have one or two more final showdowns left.
Right.
You never know.
You never know.
But yeah, Marignon's essentially running out of juice.
Right. Importantly, though, too, they're able to make 2.5 commanders a turn. So,
sure, yeah.
Unlike other, like where Agartha's got all of his forts locked down and he's lost most of his mages.
Well, 3.5 actually.
Oh yeah, 3.5. Sorry, yeah. So Marignon's actually going to be able. I mean, they're not going to be cracking any speed records in research, but they're going to get some mage core back and not terribly long.
Yeah, but they're not going to get any more nature mages until they recall their god.
True. Yeah, it'll be interesting if Gath is able to make this Foul Vapors play work. It'll be really cool. Marignon's been pretty difficult to catch in the field unawares. That's...
Yeah, the reason that I keep bringing up the Foul Vapors thing is not only is that's something that I think Marignon's very vulnerable to now, based on their losses, but also because Gath mentioned it explicitly.
Right.
So it's something that's already in Gath's head for something that they can do to finally shut down this Marignon army.
It's one of the things I think I would like if he consolidates everybody here, like, hey, I'm about to attack you, he could do the Foul Vapors play. I think, and as a surprise.
Yeah, but the other thing is you no longer need it to be a surprise because they can't counter it anyways. The only thing that Marignon can do against it at this point is sail out of that fort.
Well, the reason I think you want it as a surprise is you can't get Serpent's Blessing on your whole army yet. I don't think he has Serpent's Blessing researched. So
Right. Yeah.
He kind of has to catch him unawares where he's basically going to try to cheese the army. So you don't want him to know what your cheese is.
Yeah, it's fair.
And blood hunting operations going over on the Jotunheim front. We have Zalba jumping in here, taking the last, or this, it's not the last, but taking this Palisades.
Yeah, and both of Joman's other forts are cracked. So this is the real end times.
Yeah. This fort's cracked, and I don't think there's literally a single unit inside of it. And then this fort is cracked. Some of the murder kitties have moved back. Interesting.
Well, I mean, technically he's got a nap, right?
One of the players has a nap.
Oh wow, look at that. His blood hunting is very, very high right now. He's actually depleted 115 down to 4,000 population.
Where did it start at?
And I think it started at 6. And then he's also depleted 137, which I remember was over 10,000, down to 7,000.
Yeah.
So he has been cruising through his population.
Yeah, let's see if we can see that on his gem or province income at all. Yeah, I mean, while he was doing blood hunting operations, like this was the whole pre-Joman vulturing. Like income's been going down for him. This was probably 1,400, and he got it down to like 1,200.
And usually with growth 3 and luck 3, your province income goes up.
Right. So you're right.
Yeah, one of the nice things about luck is that because your income is a little bit detached from your population, those plus income events you get that are like, plus 10, plus 15 income and stuff, because those are flat values, they're actually like independent of the population. So if you punt it someplace down such that its income, starts becoming less impressive, like it goes down from like, 50 to 32 or whatever, like you see in 115, then getting a plus income event in that province is suddenly really nice.
Yeah. So what's interesting, it's occurring to me now, is if Xibalba is demilitarizing this, which it looks like they are, and they've got all these Aussies that they've kind of ruined their economy a bit to create, they're probably on the hunt. And it's very likely, I'm thinking, they're going to go after, and I think Pan had mentioned this, that they might also get in on the Vanheim action because they have some grievances against Vanheim stealing this throne from them.
Well, I don't know how justified those grievances are, but they do want that throne.
Yeah, well, I mean, Vanheim had never owned it, but it was going to be part of their spoils for killing Micklin, and Xibalba took it. So, and then Vanheim sneakily attacked them. So, I mean, there's a grievance, but, it's fine.
Yeah, I think that as far as Xibalba's entrance in the Vanheim War goes, if they enter it at all, it's going to basically be just to retake that land. Like,
yeah,
we're going to let you fight Pangaea, but we want this throne back. Thank you very much.
But I think if they do it, they might as well snag some of this other choice land around here.
If they can keep it, right? Because the other thing is, I don't think that they want to do heavy fighting in order to claim it.
But Vanheim's getting bled out a little bit by Pan. They're about to have Utgard attack them, and Utgard is, I want to say, let's look at the research.
Utgard is committing.
Yeah, Utgard's committing.
And Utgard's research worked very good, at least.
Yeah, research wise, okay, he's fallen off. He's a little bit behind Vanheim, but he still has, it's like, okay, what position are you in research? Utgard probably has the research they need. They're going to be dropping rigor and relief and doing their turbo communion and all that stuff.
Yeah, I'm just worried that their communion is very vulnerable.
Yeah.
Because, if you don't have Will of the Fates, for example, all those human mages are susceptible to just getting bonked.
But the timing of this is going to be really important. If, all these troops in the capital, this Rumvedi force in Cult 3, especially with a lot of mage support, super scary. If Utgard's attacking them, this force is going to need to come south to deal with it, which is going to mean it's not going to be able to move north to deal with the murder kitties. And I think if Xibalba times his attack the same time Utgard does, I think he gets this uncontested. I don't think there's anything Vanheim's going to be able to do attack round 1. Point buffing does not work against attack round 1 murder kitties with bloodlust and other shit on them. I think they have cold resistance too. Let's remind ourselves.
And his Obsidian Warriors can get there from his capital.
Right.
Yeah, they do have cold resistance. The only one they're missing is shock resistance.
And 5 isn't technically enough for Rimvedi, but when you kill everything in 2 rounds, it's probably just good enough.
Yeah, the only thing he's missing is shock resistance, which can matter when the Vedi god can do Wrathful Skies.
Oh, that's a good point. But again, it can also do turn 1 Storm, which is kind of interesting versus Aussies too. Because I was going to say it doesn't matter when the Aussies just jump on you turn 1, but...
Yeah.
All right, well, very interesting. I'm pretty sure these guys are going on Vanheim. But they're probably going to get stabbed by Arco the second they attack Vanheim.
Not if Arco attacks them.
Right. Because it may be that this turn, Xibalba moves... Actually, if we line up, maybe this turn the Aussies move here, and these guys move here, because they're not in range of this fort yet. I don't think they can move 3 attack. Next turn, he takes this fort, because the second that Arco takes this fort, I think the next turn Arco is going to attack these 3 provinces.
Yeah, and they should be able to take both forts this turn.
Right. If that happens, I'm not sure. It's possible the turn the attack orders come in from Arco that Zabalba hasn't pulled the trigger on Vanheim yet, and then he could abort. But either way, I think if you're Vanheim, you accept peace terms with Zabalba. Like if Zabalba attacks you, and then Arco attacks him, and he's like, never mind, I'll leave you alone. I think if you're Vanheim, you say, oh great, that's fine with me.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Especially with that Utgard army moving.
Yeah.
But yeah, it looks like Arco is actually amassing his stuff on the Ulm side as well. So what had been totally undefended is now going to be another front in their war.
Yeah. So this is definitely happening. I don't think there's any question about it. Man, Arco has...
I don't love that from Arco, honestly. I think he needs to chill for a little bit in research, because his research is, I mean, it's ahead of Xibalba's, but it's not where it should be.
Right. Let's take a look at it.
He's let me see. He's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. He's 8th place in research.
Yeah. Compared to like Arethia, to Tianchi. So he's comparable with Tianchi. Who are the other big players?
He's pretty far behind Tianchi, actually. Like he's like a full turn's research behind.
Yeah,
which isn't
that's
like
not
awful,
a huge deal.
Yeah.
I mean, but he's on a different.
Yeah,
he's in a completely different age compared to Arethia.
Yeah, and then Vanheim and Pangaea are both also up there.
So we have kind of like two different ages, and we've got these guys who are. Well, let's just turn on all the.
Yeah, so Gath is above him as
Pythium
well.
is so low. Pythium's beneath Arco. Wow.
Yeah.
Pythium's about to get ruined.
Pythium essentially deployed his entire mage corps for this Agartha war.
Right. Which, if it worked, it would have been great. But it's like starting to backfire.
I just don't love the way that he is, like the choices that he made with regards to recruitment have turned out with relation to this war, because he doesn't have just a pile of Misties researching.
Yeah.
So like if you do have that pile of Misties researching, then deploying all your Renatai is fine, right?
Right.
And 3/4 of Renatai production is enough, and that's all your death mages, and you're happy. But when you do have a bunch of these revelers instead, that means that you have a lot fewer of those lab rats. And therefore, like deploying the Renatai from your forts is suddenly a bigger portion of your research budget.
I tell you what, the more I look at this graph, the more I like the Arethia position.
Yeah.
Because you have these...
the top one research station.
I mean, obviously they're in position 1, but it's more than that. They're in position 1. They're about to be set up for research. They're about to be set up in a war which they're probably going to stomp Pythium, and for which Tianchi's probably going to do the heavy lifting, because Tianchi's going to be taking Pythium's cap, and all Arethia is going to take is just spoils from Atlantis. Meanwhile...
Is Tianchi going to take Pythium's cap?
My assumption is, yeah. We'll go look at it in a second. Okay. The other thing that I think is really important is the people who are position 1 and 2 in research seem to be locked in a grindy war, which it's not clear any one of those players is going to win right now.
You mean 2 and 3?
Yeah, 2 and 3. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm like, man, he's going to get probably low mage commitment, win his next war, going to be off to the races. He's going to be casting Wish in not very long. And that's like the first major breakpoint for Arethia. And that's probably only 10 turns away, probably 15 turns away.
Yeah, this is why I think that Arethia is one of the strongest LA nations, is that they have the pearl farming thing going for them, but they actually have significantly better research than other eras, and they get more out of land forts.
Yeah. Very cool. Let's go take a look at who gets Pythium's capital.
I guess either of them could do it.
Pythium's probably watching this video like, no, I get my capital. I don't know. I don't know if you do.
Yeah, I guess TNG's closer to it, but not by a ton. It's like a difference of 2 provinces in versus 3 provinces in.
Yeah.
Or 4 provinces in, I guess.
3 versus 4. I think the other thing, though, is I feel like TNG has enough stuff where they can, like, put the fort under siege, and then, like, TNG's not going to move his whole army here and sit on this fort, right? They're going to, he's going to move the infantry here. The horse are going to hit a bunch of things on the border, but things are just going to wash over this, I think. Like, he's going to try to just keep this fort locked down while he rushes into the Pythium cap.
So the position of TNG's troops doesn't match up with this, but the way that I would have done the distribution from like a talky diplomacy angle between TNG and Erythea is to say that TNG gets Agartha and
Right.
Erythea gets Pythium.
I think TNG has to be careful about how much they say about that because they're set up to gain a tremendous amount in this war. Because like Erythea is set up to gain like this, right? With like maybe they get Pythium's capital, maybe, right? But it's just like it's basically the Atlantis spoils plus some. But TNG's getting Agartha and Pythium. It's gonna be just a gluttony fest.
Yeah, they definitely stand to gain a lot of like quantity of provinces, but Erythea is actually getting a lot of quality as well because they get 2 thrones and another lake. So many of the stuff that they're taking is coastal, including both forts that Pythium has there. So
Right.
those are actually like pretty high value because they can actually make the Dukes, whereas the inland forts can make only the Mystics.
Okay.
Obviously, you do still want the capital just for like the income and gem income, but like I think that Erythea is going to be happy getting Throne of Gaia and the Inner Throne,
Yeah.
assuming they can take that. I guess the Inner Throne is technically Marignon siege by Pangaea, so there might be some diplomatic hassle with taking it, but he could take it.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was looking at too. I was kind of like, if I'm Erythea, I think I want some of these pan spoils. Like technically they're a free agent. On one hand, it sucks bullying players because you kind of can ruin your relationship. But at a minimum, I think they should ask Pangaea for these. Like, I think it's a little silly that Pangaea is taking like basically core Atlantis lands as part of their war with Marignon. And then Erythea is okay with that. While Pangaea is also in a death struggle with Vanheim, and Erythea is a free agent.
Well, the other thing is that I think that Erythea would have benefited a lot from getting that lake system.
Right.
But that goes to Gath, or because Gath already took it, it becomes kind of awkward again, like just from the diplomatic angle.
Right.
Not that Gath borders you anywhere else, so like, in the short term you could get away with it. But Gath's probably going to be sticking around for a while, and getting a bad relationship with that player for, just those 3 provinces might not be worth it.
Yeah.
Even if like, if he'd moved faster and gone in like, while those were still Marinese territory, then that would have been free for him.
Right. Yeah, I agree with that. It's the cost of pissing somebody off in a long game, if nothing else, because you just might need them to like work with you to stop somebody from running away with the game, and they like don't trust you because you stabbed them. It's like these provinces better be worth it.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's worth that much of a commitment.
Yeah.
You could take the Arco or the Jomon Lake from Arco.
Yeah.
That's another thing you could get.
But there you're going to have to fight Arco.
Yeah.
So, but it's
Yeah.
a good opportunity to do that if Arco attacks Xibalba. Be like, okay, yoink, yoink. But
yeah, I think that like just focusing on the immediate Pythium thing is probably for the best.
Yep.
And then he can start doing like wishes and other like invisible scaling gains.
Yeah, I like that. Okay, graphs real quick. Provinces, we've got Arco in front, we've got TNG behind, and we've got Pangaea, I believe, right behind them.
Yeah, and that's mostly because they've retaken so much of Marignon's territory in these last couple turns.
Forts, we've got Pangaea in a very clear and dominant position 1, which
and that
makes
explains
sense.
Their research, yeah.
Because they've got really cheap mages, relatively cheap mages.
Oh, yeah, no, I mean, even you can drop the relatively. I think just the really cheap was a fair way to put it.
Okay.
Like, those guys are extremely cost effective.
Yeah. And then income, Pangaea number 1 by a fucking margin. Look at this. He's probably, I want to say 20% above the next player.
He's a scales build and he has a second capital. So between that and all the wealth that he's gained from Marignon, he just has more gold income per province than other players.
Yeah. Jim income.
I would honestly think that his income per province is the highest.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Because he's position 3 on provinces and he's position 1 by a margin on income.
Yeah, because the only other player that has like equivalent scales in terms of income is Vanheim, and Vanheim has much poorer territory because he doesn't have another cap. And he also has just like a couple individual port provinces.
Yeah. Jim Income, TNT ahead by a mile. Who's going to be the late game gym contender once they get their little Wish Shadow economy going, is a ways behind them, though. So they're going to have like major Wish farms set up to make up this difference.
Yeah, and I think part of that is just that TNG has been so proactive about site searching. So he's actually able to, like find whatever gems are in his territory. But it's also that, he is a bigger nation than Erythea in terms of just province count.
Right. Yeah, Erytheon provinces, not really, they're at the bottom of the pack, really. Which is kind of why I was like, when you have that much research, I mean, Pan's a strong nation, but you're a free agent, they're locked in a war. I think you take a couple provinces. You don't let Pan get that Marignon spoils that was really Atlantis.
Yeah, maybe. It just depends on like what the different players actually feel and what they can agree on.
Yeah.
Because I don't think it's worth alienating each other over this.
Yeah, I agree too. In the research, we've looked at that. Dominion, Erythea number 1. That's surprising for being low.
That is surprising. I think that it's just because they need temples in all those forts in order to make the Deducadas because they're sacred. But I would think that Pangaea would be ahead of them because Pangaea actually has discounted temples as like a national thing.
Yeah. I mean, they're catching up. The Pangaea line is, it is trending up very strong. Arco in a very tight position too for Dominion. Who is this? Is this Gath? Yeah, that's Gath. Okay, and then TNG right behind him. I believe that's Vanheim. So, all right, looking at all of these and then looking at the board and the game state and everything, who do you think is position 1?
Ooh, gosh. I think that like I would have said Pangaea if not for the fact that they were stuck in that war. Because they actually just have that great balance of both being physically large and having like really solid research at that size.
Mm-hmm.
But given that they're basically stuck in this war with Vanheim, which is basically looking like it's going to have World War I levels of border movement, it's going to be like really hard for them to like basically cruise on ahead. Whereas TNG and Erythea both stand to actually gain a bunch more territory.
Yeah.
So I would say one of those 3 nations for different reasons. TNG just because of sheer gem income giving them a bunch of resources. But Erythea's research is also incredible, and they're going to be getting a bunch more territory for free.
Yeah, I feel like this TNG, if the TNG Erythea alliance prevails, I think they're in position 1 and 2. Especially given the game state. Yeah. I feel like TNG may actually be in position 1 though. Just based on how much spoils I'm projecting them to get out of the Pythium War. And if they maintain that alliance with Erythea after that, they're going to be in a really good position. The thing that I think they have to be worried about maybe a little bit is thrones. They need 15 points to win. So that's going to be at a minimum 8 thrones. Okay, they don't have to worry about that yet.
Yeah, it's a ways away. I had kind of been looking at it actually for Pangaea, for like who they might be able to kill in order to get into range. Just if they had been able to like very cleanly grab the Marignon stuff. But yeah, no one's actually in range of rushing. And you know who we haven't been talking about as a potential victor or a position 1 player is Arco. And I think that like it's worth giving them an honorable mention, even though they're not in my mind in the top 3 at this point. I think that Arco just needs to chill and research, and until they like actually catch up in the research department in order to like keep up with the other top players, then like they're not going to be able to realize the potential power of having this many provinces. So I think just like they're very obviously set up to like basically keep the war engine rolling and go after Xibalba. And I just think that by doing that, they're never going to get into a position where they can't get swept the second they start taking major losses.
Right, because the second anybody in the top 3 per research decides to kill Arco, assuming they have the mages in the army present, like they're just in different worlds of tech. Arco can't resist fighting Erythea or something, or Pangaea.
I would honestly say that TNG can take Arco at this point too.
Yeah.
Just because they have such great battlefield clear stuff.
Yeah.
And I don't think that Arco has the research in order to beat that yet.
Right.
Not without like dumping a bunch of elementals to win an individual trivial fight, which TNG can do in like, 3 different provinces at the same time.
The other thing I don't love about the Arco position is they're planning on fighting Zabalba, and I just don't see that going well. The other thing Zabalba can do, because you see this big army of pointy sticked dudes, they can cast Skeletal Legion. Oh, okay, they can't do it yet because they don't have any research. Okay, so ignore that.
Yeah, I think Xibalba is also very behind on research.
But the second Zabalba gets alt 6, Arco's dead. Like, Skeletal Legion in darkness, and this army's like totally boned.
Yeah, so the one thing that Xibalba is doing, which I found kind of interesting, is they started recruiting the Ahas, which are their cheapest research mage. It's the Water one, Earth one guy. So they're absolutely garbage at magic, but they are the cheapest. It's the frog guy.
Oh, this guy, yeah.
Yeah. So these guys are actually their most cost effective in terms of like research per gold, which is a little bit sad, but it's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're sacred, so they have half upkeep.
Right.
So the fact that he's buying those guys who are completely useless as actual combat mages tells me that he's either starting to get strapped for cash or he's realized that like, oh shoot, I actually need to go read some books. So he's trying to like create a dedicated lab rat core,
right,
so that he can start focusing a little bit on catching up on that research.
He sees a blood mage and he can't let the blood mages read books. They just must hunt for blood slaves, and so this is his way of like holding his hand and like, no, I am not going to push the blood hunt button. I'm going to read books.
Yeah. So I think like long term, that's his plan to like start catching up. And then of course, you've got various boosters that you can put on them, because I think his fire mages are going to be busy because those are his Ocelotl summoners and he doesn't have a lot of them. But he can definitely make blood boosters.
Okay.
The imp thingies.
Here's a what if Arco attacks, right, and then like consolidates or something and correctly predicts Zabalba's move, and they have a Doomstack battle, and somehow in that Arco resets the murder kitty count and only loses like 100 dudes. I don't know how that's going to happen, but let's assume that does happen. Is the Arco position then really good?
If I reset the murder kitty count, you mean set it to actually 0, then yeah. Then he can actually beat Xibalba. I don't think he can do that.
Yeah, I don't think he can. But does that put him in position 1 then if he's in like a winning, a decisively winning war against Xibalba?
He's up there. He'd at least be in the conversation, I think.
Yeah.
Because I think that Arithia is still in position to go slap him down if he needs to.
Yeah. To me, what's really interesting is Arco's taking his 3rd cap, and I don't actually think he's in position 1 when he's just been murdering people the entire game. Because, normally, me, I'm like a more slow, like I don't want to get too far ahead of the pack. And if I were Arco, I'd be like terrified of getting too far ahead where people are going to knife me. Oh no, I can't get a 3rd capital already. But he's not really position 1. It's wild to me. He's not even in the conversation.
But it really is just a matter of that research, right? Like the second that he slows down, catches up, and he's also kind of behind on site searching. Like a lot of his territory isn't thoroughly searched. So like basically slow down, he can burst up in research pretty quickly. So that, a couple gem globals, he's set. Then, then he's solidly in position 1. But I think that basically what we've been agreeing on is that his long-term play, like in terms of who he's going for, is going to make it very hard for him to actually get into like that dominant snowbally position that he's so far actually been seeming to maintain.
Right. And if he is going to win that mythical battle I was talking about where he kills all the murder kitties, that's going to be done with his entire mage core, if somehow that is to happen. Like every mage he can mobilize. So the idea that he might be sitting around and reading books is completely incompatible with exterminating Xibalba. So
the one thing I think that he could do is if Xibalba goes on Vanheim, and then his southern guys might be out of position, because that seems to be where massing like his secondary force is on Ulm. So if Xibalba is out of position for dealing with that can cause some damage.
He could like maybe lose this palisade. I don't see him losing this. Maybe he could lose this fort too. This fort could get 1 turn popped.
No, I mean that Arco coming from the south.
Oh my god!
And attacking. Oh goodness,
Jesus! Woo!
Well, that's important.
That's very important. So for those of you who are doing audio only, the Xibalba has a blood 20 discount site.
Not blood 40, but still nice.
Yeah, I mean it's a major deal. I mean, it just means 20% more blood. And that's a really nice thing. If he also gets into vampire lords, it means vampire lords scale 20% faster, and they kind of grow like an exponential thing too. So,
I don't know if Xibalba gets actually all that much out of vampire lords
Yeah.
compared to basically every other nation in the game, because they already have flying stealthy death blood mages,
yeah,
and they definitely don't need them to be hunters because they already have blood bonuses on their way up.
yeah, but this is a huge deal. 20% discount to murder kitties and other sorts of Zabalban mischief. That's really cool.
Yeah, the Onakis is what you would really be getting a lot of value of that. Those guys,
Yeah, they're super expensive.
they're very expensive, and they free spawn beast bats, which can kind of like accelerate your sacred spam mess. And they're just big mages, so that's always nice.
Right. I still don't think this puts him in position 1, but
agreed.
Very strong.
If he kills Arco, he becomes position 1, I think.
Yeah, I think so too.
But he similarly needs to catch up on research. I think he at least realizes this. That, like, unlike Arco, who seems to be full speed ahead on continuing to deploy all of his mages, Xibalba knows that, you got to read some books sometimes and has some guys dedicated to it. But yeah, even if he kills Arco, he could get into position 1, but he needs to actually similarly not like he needs to both get a bunch of territory from that war and not need to keep burning all of his resources actually fighting.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Zabalban research targets are not super high, right? Like,
yeah, alt 6.
Alt 6.
He already has blood 4.
Alt 7 is really nice too, right?
I mean,
Evocation 6
so
is
much
amazing,
value.
But it's like there's a lot of things Zabalba can do, but if you're rolling around with 300 Ocelotls, what do you actually need? And what you really need is you need darkness, and you may need skeletal body. Like Skeletal Legion, that's it.
Right, but I think that Xibalba scales so well with so many different paths. Like, Evo 6, you'd mentioned.
Yeah.
Deep Blood, extremely valuable, right? Like Blood 7, Blood 8. You get tons of good stuff in there. Leech, Life for Life. Even the Blood 9s that you can diversify off of Ocelotls. But the Blood 8 for Reign of Jaguars is also huge.
Right.
And then, you get a ton of value out of big alteration stuff, right? Like, you definitely love Marble Warriors, you love Fog Warriors. You need Storm or Storm Stabs at some point against anyone. Right, because like every nation kind of needs that flying counter.
Right.
So Xibalba kind of like, in order for their true like late game world-ending power levels to be reached, does kind of need a lot of research.
Well, sure. I mean, they can take advantage of a huge amount, but I'm just thinking with where nations are going to be in like 6 or 7 or 8 turns, or 10 turns or 15 turns, Zabalba can get by on their. If they get Alt 6, I think they can get by on a pretty meager research budget.
Yeah, I mean, you can get by on literally blood.
Where if they kill Arco, they are going to be in a, like you were saying, close to position 1.
Yeah,
but okay.
I mean, I think the only research that they need is blood 4 because
okay,
you do bloodlust and then you're fine.
Right.
But that's kind of playing them as like the only hammer strategy. And with Xibalba's Bless, I sort of got the impression that they were going to try to use more of that wide toolkit rather than just the hammer.
Yeah, they do have magic scales, so
yeah,
they
have magic scales and booster access. This is
an important thing to point out about magic scales too, which is that people are like, "Oh, you need magic scales for research." If you're playing a Blood Nation, while it's great having magic so that you can do like Sabbaths without passing out and all those things, you get way less value out of it than a normal nation for research because most of your mages are not taking advantage of it. Most of your mages are like, if you're doing heavy blood hunting, are out there killing your population. So
yeah, kind of. I mean, you still do like need to research.
Well, I know, but I'm just saying, like, look at like Zabalba. Like, this is not like Magic 3 and you're like, oh, they're Magic 3. You're like, oh, it's horrible. And like they could take Drain and have more money and have more mages and probably be about the same. Because with Zabalba, the constraint is much more like how many mages do you have that you're devoting to research, rather than how much money rather than what your magic scales are. But
so I don't totally agree with that. And the reason for that is that the percentage difference in research that you get from Magic 3 is much higher than the gold percentage difference that you're talking about. Because like if your mage has a base research of, what do these cheap guys have? I think it's like 9. Yeah, 9 research. So getting a 33% research advantage from your Magic 3 or going drain 3 getting that minus 33%. That's not like, you can't take gold scales that give you 33% more gold.
No, but that's my whole point. You don't need to, because that math is the math for a scales or for a nation that's not blood hunting. When you're doing blood hunting, if you're putting 80% of your mages on either summoning or blood hunting, and you only have 20% of your mages researching, then the magic scales isn't really getting you 30% more research. It's giving you 30% of 20%. So if you were to actually spend 10% more gold on mages, you would take your 20% of mages, which are researching, and you would turn it effectively into 30, but you'd have less, research per mage.
I understand what you're trying to say, but I don't agree with that math because it doesn't actually match up with your effective distribution. But I don't think this is going to make.
We don't need to like that.
Yeah.
But okay. I mean, whether you can say it still works out, but you understand what I'm trying to say with the mechanics. How it is definitely less valuable on a blood nation because you're only applying it to a smaller part of the mage core. That doesn't mean you shouldn't get it, which is I think what you were saying. Like it's still valuable.
What I was saying is that as a percentage, right, in terms of the effect on your research, it does more for Shibalba than the equivalent gold scales.
Okay.
That you can't get,
but I'm not saying that. I'm saying it.
You can't.
Yeah.
You can't even get 10% gold per scale.
Yeah, I'm saying it's less valuable on a blood nation than it is for a non-blood nation because you're applying it to a few portion of the mages. But yeah. Anyway, cool. Closing thoughts.
Well, I think we just had them.
Yeah. Cool.
With the whole breakdown, because this is actually the first time in the last couple turns, I think, that we did that deep dive on the graphs in order to actually try to compare who's ahead.
Yep. Okay, and then I'm going to ask you one last question as we close it out, and that is, who do you think is going to take Agartha's capital? Place your bet.
TNG.
Okay, everybody in the comments, put it in. Who's going to take Agartha's capital? Do you think it's going to be TNG? Do you think it's going to be Pythium? Do you think it's going to be Gath? Or does Utgard or Vanheim swoop in?
I mean, Utgard is in position to attack Vanheim, and between that and Pangaea on their trench warfare border, I don't think that Vanheim or Utgard are really in for the count.
Yeah, probably.
I mean, Pythium might get it first, but that would be kind of a long shot.
Okay. So yeah, you're probably right with TNG. But I thought it would be a little more up in the air than that. But maybe it is more locked in stone. Who knows?
Yeah, the only other person I could see getting it is Gath, but even that seems kind of a long shot to me.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks so much for joining me, Sai.
Absolutely. Thanks for hosting.
And viewers, if you made it to the end, thank you, as always. We'll see you next time.